please take your Bibles and turn to Hebrews chapter 5. Hebrews chapter 5. In our previous sessions, we started out early on in the book of Hebrews, and we were showing verse by verse, taking it back into the prophecies that David, who was a prophet, who saw beforehand the coming of the Messiah, but that's not all that he saw. He saw a lot of detail about this offspring of David, and who is also going to be the Son of the Most High in some way. We don't know exactly how. David didn't know how it was going to be. As a matter of fact, Yeshua asked the Pharisees, religious leaders, a question about this whole thing that, who is the Messiah? Is he? And they said he's David's son. And so then David said, then why does David call him Lord if he is his son? What's the deal there? And it says they couldn't answer him. Why? Because it was incriminating evidence, because it was having to do with the man that was standing there asking them the questions. We went back into the Psalms, and we are going to then again touch into it, because to understand Hebrews, we have to go back into the Torah and into the prophets, including the prophet David, to see the context for which Shaul is laying out what is going on. This is a letter that is written to Messianic Jews in the first century before the destruction of the temple. Of course, they weren't called Messianic Jews back then. They were called Notzrim. Notzrim. They were a follower of the Netzer. The Netzer, Yeshua lived in Netzeret. He was of the lineage of King David, and that's what Netzer means, a shoot from the root of the tree of Yishai, from whom comes King David, but that this Netzer would come out of the roots at a later time and distant from the original trunk, or Gizah, which is cut down. Isaiah prophesied this very thing. And Yeshua was the Netzer. His followers were called the followers of the way of the Netzer, or the Notzrim. And so when we use the term Messianic Jew, that's fairly recent. As a matter of fact, it was the Hebrew Christians which developed a movement out of New York in a past generation that first were started using the term Messianic Jews. But there's a lot of problems with them, because any Gentiles that join into their group, they're not really full members of the body of Messiah. They're only associate members. And it's okay for the Gentiles to continue on in all the abominations of the Egyptians and the Babylonians and the Romans and the Greek pagans. It's just fine, because they say only the Torah applies to them. So what you have is a two-house theory in which it's us and them. There is no one new man among this cult that grew up out of New York. They call themselves Messianic Jews, but they don't even follow the Messiah. They do, Yeshua said, don't call anyone rabbi, don't be called rabbi. They call each other rabbi, blow smoke up each other's skirt all the time. And so, they do what the Messiah said don't do. They call themselves Messianic, but, Yeshua said, don't follow the Takanot Maasim of the Pharisees. And they follow all of the Takanot Maasim of the Pharisees just so they can look and feel Jewish. I'll tell you, it's a mess. It's a maelstrom of messianic delusions going on out there. I'm all in favor of following the Netzer. And I want to be a Notzrim. I want to be a follower of the Messiah, as they did in the first century when they kept the Torah. They circumcised their children. They kept the feast. They kept the Sabbath. This is what the followers of the Messiah did. It was the pagans who then first launched off and started to do their own thing, and then turned the grace of God into a license to sin and live any way that they wanted to. Okay? And so then you got the pagans who are then twisting the scriptures to their own destruction, and twisting Shaul's writings to their destruction, because they're unlearned and unstable in the Torah from which Shaul is constantly quoting. And now Shaul continues in Hebrews. In Hebrews chapter 5, verse 1, we read, "For every high priest, every Kohen Gadol, taken from among men, is ordained for men in things pertaining to God." Now when it says for, because, then, we have to step back. Even though we read it before, we have to step back to find out the context here. So we go back to verse 14. "Seeing then that we have a great Kohen Gadol, a Gadol Kohen Gadol, that is passed into the heavens, Yeshua, the Son of God, let us hold fast to our profession. For we do not have a Kohen Gadol which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but he was in all points tempted like we, yet he was without sin. Let us therefore, because of this, let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace." See, we approach the real throne, not just the Ark of the Covenant in the temple as the high priest was able to do and did on the Day of Atonement, but something has happened in the temple service. First of all, at the time of the Babylonian captivity, at Nebuzaradan's siege, the Ark of the Covenant was hidden away. After that, the Day of Atonement, that changed. And then it changed again in the year 28 of the Common Era until 68 of the Common Era, which is the Jewish reckoning of the last 40 years of when the temple was destroyed in 68 of the Common Era. 28 to 68, something changed again. And it had to do with Yom Kippur, the day we rehearsed with the high priest as our representative coming in before the throne of the Most High. Okay? And so because of the change, we therefore can come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace, the empowerment to live a holy, a righteous, and a godly life in the middle of a sick, twisted, and perverse world. So this is what we want to find, that grace to help us in the time of need. Because every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men and from among men in things pertaining to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. Who can have compassion, this high priest that is chosen among men can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, who have gone off the track. For that he himself also was compassed about with infirmity. The high priest chosen from among men knows what it's like to sin. He knows what it's like to live in this world. He knows what it's like to be contaminated by the world. And because of that, he can have compassion on his fellow man. And he can be an appropriate representative in the throne room, because he goes in with a sin offering for himself and a sin offering for the people, because he is not untouched by sin. He knows what it's like, because he too is touched with sin and gets contaminated. And by reason of this, that he is compassed about with infirmity, hereof he ought, as for the people, so also for himself to offer sins. So he offers a sacrifice for himself, the household of Aaron, and also for his fellow man. And he says, it's the same conjunction, but no man takes this honor unto himself. No one takes this responsibility on themselves, but he that is called of Yah, as was Aaron. Aaron was called by Yah, and the high priest, every one of them, had to be called, and he didn't take it upon himself. So also, Messiah did not glorify himself to be made a high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art my son, today have I begotten thee. He said in another place, thou art a priest forever after the order of the Meleck Tzadik, who in the days of his flesh, the Meleck Tzadik, the king of righteousness, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplication, and with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was and was heard in that he feared, though he were a son, yet he learned obedience by the things he suffered. Yeshua learned obedience. He learned the strain of obeying. He learned the temptations because he was in all points tempted like we, yet were without sin. Now, let's go back to this very thing. In that he also said, "Thou art my son, today have I begotten thee." Let's go right back to Psalm 110. Psalm 110. The prophecy upon which this is based by David. Yahovah said unto Adonai, "Sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool." Yahovah shall send the rod of thy, Adonai's, strength out of Zion. Rule Adonai, in the midst of thine enemies. Thy people, Adonai's people, shall be willing in the day of thy, Adonai's power. In the beauty of holiness, from the womb of thy morning, thou, Adonai, hast the dew of thy, Adonai's youth. Yahovah has sworn and will not repent. Thou, Adonai, art a priest forever after the order of the Meleck Tzadik. The Yahovah at thy right hand. This is one of the 138 places the Masoretes changed Yahovah into Adonai because they didn't want the people to be confused. Don't do me a favor. It doesn't confuse me because it is Yahovah at the right hand of Yahovah who will strike through kings in the day of his Adonai, who bears the title of Yahovah in the day of his wrath. He, Adonai, who is Yahovah at the right hand of Yahovah, shall judge. He will be the judge among the heathens. He, Adonai, shall fill the places with dead bodies. As Yeshua said, I did not come to bring peace, I came to bring a sword. There is going to be a day of judgment, and that is when the dead bodies are going to be piled so high that it's going to take months to bury them. He shall wound the heads over many countries. The kings over many countries are going to be whacked. He, Adonai, who is Yahovah at the right hand of Yahovah, shall drink of the brook in the way. Therefore shall he lift up the head. Now, let's go back to where it all started, Psalm chapter 2. Psalm chapter 2. Why did the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain and empty, a worthless thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together. This is what we call conspiracy. The kings of the earth set themselves. In the Greek, this is beautiful because it is a word stasis, which is to take a stand in rebellion against the one to whom one owes allegiance. The kings of the earth had taken a stand together with the rulers of this world, the cosmokratoros, as it would say in the Greek text, the world rulers, the rulers of the darkness of this age, the cosmokratoros. And they have taken counsel or conspired together against Yahovah and against his anointed, against his Moshiach, against his Messiah, saying this. This is their plan, okay? It's like, yeah, it's a real secret. Let us break their bands asunder. We are not going to be constrained by them. Let us cast their cords from them. We are not going to be bound by their rules and restrictions. We're not going to keep the Sabbath. We're not going to be bound by thou shalt not murder, because we're going to murder whoever we want to. As David Rockefeller said, that the revolution of Mao Zedong was the most successful social engineering that has been done in this generation, because he murdered 60 million people. That's what David Rockefeller said. David Rockefeller can go directly to hell Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And I don't care who you put in the White House. Everyone you put in the White House to go with your thing to try to murder and socially engineer and wipe out the population and kill us. You're going there. Hey, let's read about your fate, okay? He that sits in the heavens is going to laugh. Ha, ha, ha. He's the Adonai. Adonai shall have them in derision. He who sits in the heavens, Yahovah, against whom they conspire, and against his anointed, the Mashiach. The Mashiach, Adonai, shall have them in derision. Then shall he, Adonai, speak unto them in his Adonai's wrath, and vex them in his Adonai's sore displeasure. Yet have I, Yahovah, set my king, Adonai, upon my holy hill of Zion. I, David, will declare the decree Yahovah has said unto me, David. Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. This is the decree that the Almighty made to him. This is it. Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. He is speaking, the Almighty is speaking, thou art my son. Who is his son? The Mashiach, Adonai. This day have I begotten thee. Somehow, the offspring of King David, who is the Lord of King David, will also come out of his loins. This is the riddle Yeshua put to the religious leaders, and they could not answer him. I'm answering it for you. Ask of me. Ask of me. Adonai, ask of me, Yahovah, and I will give you the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost part of the earth for thy, Adonai's possession. Thou, Adonai, shall break them with a rod of iron. Thou, Adonai, the Messiah, Yahovah at the right hand, will dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, you hotshots who think you are going to rule the world. Be instructed, you judges, you rulers, great men of the earth, you think you're so big. Serve Yahovah with fear. Rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son. You better make up to him, lest he be angry and you perish from the way when his, Adonai's wrath, is revealed is kindled for but a little. Blessed is all they that put their trust in him. This is such an incredible piece, because we are seeing the position of the Messiah as the anointed, the Son of God, who sits at the right hand, Yahovah, who sits at the right hand of Yahovah. Yahovah, as it says that in Zechariah, Yahovah Tzavaot shall reign from his throne in Jerusalem. The king shall reign from his throne in Jerusalem. And those who do not come up and worship the king, Yahovah Tzavaot, it will not rain on them for an entire season. Acts 23, verse 11. Okay? Those who want to think that there is no such thing as conspiracy, and that everything happens by accident, and that the rulers of the earth and the kings of this earth haven't really conspired together. No, verse 11 of chapter 23. The night following, the Lord, this is speaking of Yeshua, stood by Shaul and said, Be of good cheer, Shaul, for as thou hast testified to me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome. Now, to have Yeshua show up in a vision there in Jerusalem to tell Shaul what's going on, this is a singularly significant event. And it says, And when it was day, certain of the Jews, these are the Pharisees, banded together, and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink until they had killed Shaul. Now, is this a conspiracy when people bind themselves together under a curse? Well, let's continue reading in case we really have to have the word conspiracy in the Bible in order for you to believe there is such a thing. And they were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not a theory. Evil men can't do evil things without conspiring together. And when they do, and this is one thing that my accountant, CPA, Richard Bohr, said concerning what happened in Michigan. He said that the one thing you can't guard against and you can't detect in accounting is conspiracy. Because when you get two people to agree together to tell the same lies, and that they meet together and regularly manufacture the same lies, then you can't detect it. There's no way to find out until the Almighty opens up the door on that. And that is, I'll tell you, that is exactly what happened. We've got just a few minutes. I want to go and I want to read something to you, because this is what happened just before they dropped the hammer in Michigan. And I'm just sharing this with you because it relates to what the Almighty says about conspiracy, because this is what we're contending with in this world. What we are eating in the grocery stores, ladies and gentlemen, is not food. It is what prophetically was called by Yeshayahu, Isaiah, pharmakia. It was what Yohanan was called pharmakia. We are going to define pharmakia and show the difference between what is now being put on our tables, what is now being grown in America and fed to this population as pharmakia, no longer okla, no longer food. But it was the 63rd Psalm that the Almighty sent me to, woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to go here. And when I hit this verse, I wondered what in the world is going on, because I had no idea of a conspiracy to destroy my life and ministry was underway, but yet the Almighty then showed me. Verse 9, but. And all you have to do is read the first verse and you know why the but is there, because now it's in contrast to everything that goes before, because this was a picture of my life about seeking the Almighty and desiring to do His word. But those that seek my soul to destroy it shall go into the lower parts of the earth. They shall go into the grave, into hell, as it is then translated into English. They shall fall by the sword. They shall be food for the foxes. But the king shall rejoice in God, Elohim. Everyone that swears by Him shall glory. But the mouth of them that speak lies shall be stopped. Hear my voice, O Elohim, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. And this is what we need to pray for right now. They have conspired together against us. What is being said against us to destroy our freedoms and to destroy this nation, I don't believe can be stopped. If you think otherwise, go for it. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked. That's conspiracy. From the insurrection of the workers of iniquity among us, who whet their tongue like a sword, and they to cut you to pieces, who bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even with their bitter words, that they may shoot in secret at the upright. Suddenly they do shoot at him, and they do not fear. They encourage each other. They encourage themselves in the evil matter. They commune of laying snares privately. They say, who sees them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. But the Almighty shall shoot at them, verse 7, with an arrow. Suddenly they shall be wounded. They shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. Ladies and gentlemen, the Almighty is on our side, and we are going to see the conspiracy of the wicked turn upon them. I'd like to pray. Yivarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Ya'ir Yehovah panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach Sar Shalom. Yehovah bless you and keep you. Yahovah, make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahovah, lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Give you peace, because when the world conspires against you, even when your friends conspire against you to destroy you, yet the Almighty is there and he will bring them to naught. He will take them out. He will destroy them, and he will lead you in the path of righteousness all the days of your life.
For more information, visit www.aroodawakening.tv or call 1-888-766-3610.